America's Podcast. With your host, Donald Ledesma. Hi, everybody. Welcome to America's Podcast. I'm your host, Donald Ledesma, and welcome to today's show. You know, it's been quite challenging lately. There's just been so much going on out ever since the changes of this new administration. It's been happening. You know, and whether you like him or you don't, or, you know, you can swing left or right or in the middle. And really, at this point, you know, it's all we have to do is look forward for the best, right? And that's what America's Podcast is about. But before we begin, I want to thank our military. Yes, our United States military. Thank you for your service. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, the Coast Guard, Space Force, you name it. National Guard, very important people in our lives. They protect the sovereignty of everything of the United States of America to make sure that we're all safe and sound, right? Yeah, that's what it's about. You know, we just love those guys and gals and everybody that's out there that's protecting our states, man. The United States of America. What's America? Freedom. That's what it's about. Freedom. And as Americans, you know, we tend to have a lot of things going on, right? Today's podcast is, you know, don't forget to go to our sponsors. We have a link there. It's called All My Links. Please click on that. You'll see all the sponsors. America's Coffee. I am drinking some right now. Yes, it's really amazing coffee. Check that out. And there's a Snack Bench 85. Go check out that store over there. And, you know, they're really nice sponsors to the show. You know, if you click on there, get yourself some goodies there, some nice coffee or some goodies on Snack Bench store there, 85. Go check those out. You know, they do a lot for America's Podcast. You know, we have to have them going, man, because they keep us going every day. Today, we're going to talk about the American dollar, right? Of how much it's worth and how much does it cost, right? To print a dollar, right? And what's the history of the dollar and why, right? Now, we've been noticing our economy these past few years. You know, it was getting a little rocky there. It was getting a little rocky. And, of course, the price of food was going up. And we talked about the eggs, right, with our last podcast with Mr. David Aliff and his wife, right, Amanda. And we talked about the cost of eggs and the proteins and all the goods and ins and outs about eggs. Of course, now they're through the roof again, right? And why does that happen? Well, it has a lot to do with our economy, right? You know, fuel costs, you know, truckers, they got to ship these things to different parts of the United States, different states, right? Wherever these egg farms are coming from. And of course, the bird flu did not help one bit. They killed, I don't know, 2 million or 20 million chickens and eggs. They destroyed the eggs as well, right? So they wanted to make sure the bird flu was not contaminating people, and at that given time, right? So how long did it take us to, as far as the chickens? Yeah, she said it was going to take about 6 months, you know, so we still have a couple more months before our egg prices decide to go down. But not just eggs, it's food, meat, everything involved in that, right? And fuel, of course, for the truckers was getting really expensive. So the cost of gas was through the roof, right? And it just kept going higher and higher. And there was some times in the past couple of years that prices did go down somewhat, right? Why? Because I talked about it before. We use the National Fuel Reserve, right? When you use the National Fuel Reserve, of course, they used, and that's our backup plan, right? So if anything catastrophic happens, we have that fuel for the people of the United States of America, right? And, you know, they started using that, and it went down like significantly low to try to save you at the gas pumps. But at the same time, we're paying a lot of money per barrel of fuel to OPEC, right? And those are the industry people. Those are the kings, the Saudis. You know, they hold They were holding the keys to the barrel of oil at the time because they stopped all these drilling here in the United States, and because of it was everything was go green, right? Which is nothing wrong with that. But, at the same time, it was hurting our economy because it was costing more money for us to get it shipped to the United States of America from different countries, right? Yeah, it does that. So, and there's a lot that goes along with it, especially that's a really big animal to process, to tell you the truth, because they're the leaders of everything, and they have control of the oil standards and the cost of oil, right? So if we're paying, let's say, $80 to $90 a barrel, of course our fuel is going to be higher, right? The lower the price of the fuel of the barrel, the lower that we're going to pay at the pump. So we were getting taken through the ringer with OPEC, right? So now with the new administration, they changed everything around to where we are going to be drilling our own oil, right? Going back to keeping the prices down. What does that do for the dollar? It does a lot for the dollar, because you got to remember, the more money you save at the pump, right? Let's just say you're putting $100 of fuel in your vehicle, or have a truck. I have a big dually, so yeah, it costs almost $100 to fill it up. Now at that point, well, so here in let's just say it's going to take about 4 to 6 months before fuel prices start coming down, because of course the process of making oil, it's not simple. A lot of these oil rigs, a lot of these oil platforms, even land platforms have been parked for 4 years, right? So just because they're parked doesn't mean they have to not be maintenance. They have to be maintained, right? And to get them back to par to where they're going to go back and drill, that's going to take some time for each rig. I worked at a company that had 16 rigs, right? Which are these drilling platforms that drill out land platforms. They do just drilling straight down, or they'll do these angle drills, or just to try to fracking, in other words, to try to get oil in different pockets, right? And there's plenty of it, believe me. There's plenty of it below our feet. We just don't realize that it's down there, right, until you start drilling. And is it the right thing? Some people like it, some people don't. I get that part. But at the same time, we're stimulating our economy with it, because now once we start drilling, we have to fill up our reserves first, right? So once we fill up our reserves, which right now I believe we have 47 trillion gallons of fuel, and and it's way below that now. So we have to get it back to where it was. Once we get our fuel reserves back to where they're at, well, then the cost of fuel will start dropping, because we're going to start drilling. It's going to take a little while to get these drilling platforms back out in the ocean, back out on land. And of course, they changed a lot of the EPA regulations. Yes, they had to do that to drop the standards a little bit, so that way they can start drilling. And what does that do for EPA? Well, EPA standardizes a lot of your refrigerants, oils, and things that you buy at the, let's just say at the, even aerosols, right? That you use in your hairspray, or even in your vehicles to clean your brakes and stuff like that, right? So they were coming down on a lot of these companies that use this stuff, right? And they were being charged a lot more money, so it was costing you more money at the cash register, right? So what does that do now? When they changed the EPA, they changed now to where if you're buying, let's just say, refrigerant for an HVAC air conditioning guy, right, who's paying $600 for that little canister that they usually have a refrigerant. Well, now it's not $600 anymore. Now it's back down to $200, right? Or maybe $100. So it's going to save him money, where he's going to go out and able to take his family out to eat now, right? Or there's a little extra money in the budget now. They can hire somebody else. Hello. It starts stimulating the economy. And the same thing I was talking about, the fuel on your vehicles, right? The same thing's going to happen, which cost me $100. Now it's going to cost me $50 to fuel up my truck, or maybe $60, right? Gives me an extra $40 in my pocket. Hey, what am I going to do with that? I'm going to go have a steak, right? Or I'm going to go take my kids out to eat or something, right? So you're stimulating the economy as you're keeping the influx inside of the United States. And that's how that actually works, right? And people don't realize that. And the reason I know a lot of this, I was in the oil field 16 years. I know how it felt to have money, and I know how it felt when it all hit the floor. So, and that was the not just the difficult part, but it was something to readjust. I had to go into a different kind of field, right? Because of it, I couldn't be in the oil field anymore. It wasn't paying enough for the bills, right? So it had to make a major life change, right? For some people, or even a lot of folks, not just in that, but just in that sort of field, because everything just came to a complete abrupt end, right? So how do we fix this? Of course, this is how we do it. We have to redrill, refill our reserves, refill everything that we have, and make sure that everything's back to normal. And then once we see that, we'll start seeing the fuel prices drop, right? And it's not rocket science. That's just how it is. I mean, that's your economics 101, right? It's going to start with fuel and everything involved, right? With how do we fix our economy, right? And the first thing, right? Of course, we have to work on our economy, right? Which is going to be, we're going to have to do tax cuts, tax rebates. We have to stimulate the economy with deregulations, which I was just talking about, the EPA, right? We have to do that using infrastructure to spur our economic growth, right? So infrastructure meaning our own drill. We make our own fuel, everything that we need for energy, right? And that's basically what's going to do it to fix this economy where we're at. Now, are some people in a bad spot now? Yeah, I'm sure there is, and there's some out there that are not, that really don't really care if it is or isn't, right? But as far as like your standard Joe Schmo or Jane Schmaine, we have to keep the refrigerator full, keep your tanks full. Get up at 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 to 5 it, go to work and pay the bills. I saw this video the other day of this gentleman talking about, he says you should be only able to work 40 hours a week for 4 weeks and pay your mortgage. You shouldn't have to work 2 jobs at 40 hours a week each to pay your mortgage, right? So everything's kind of was going in that direction. And now we're starting to have changes. Everybody's seeing it, not just left, not just right, not just the people that are in the middle. Everybody's starting to see this economic change, right? And it started, they had this guy come out in January, I believe, and he talked about a little bit about this. And let me play this for you real quick, about a minute long. But he talks about how the bank performance, this was in January, early January, before the inauguration, right? That how they were preparing to get boosted up somewhat. And this is what he talks about.
Financials tend to set the tone for the rest of earnings season. Now, it doesn't happen all the time, but I think it's largely due to the results that we saw with the financials. We also got better than expected inflation data here recently. And I would also say that while we did get a Trump bump after the election, which was, in my opinion, mostly due to the idea that these lower U.S. corporate income taxes, which were set to expire in 2026, now are in all likelihood going to be extended for quite some time. The market rallied on that, but then the market following that and got into December, and we see a market that got much more sobered and kind of took everything into consideration, looked at valuations, and I think kind of collectively said, we may have gotten ahead of ourselves a little bit. We saw the market sell off at the end of the year, and we saw that carry into 2025 with a market that basically is more or less traded sideways to slightly down up until yesterday. So yesterday, I think the market breathed a sigh of relief. There was some celebration that, not only did the banks deliver good earnings, they delivered, arguably great earnings compared to what the street was expecting. And that sets a good tone here and sets some optimism as we go further here into January, into the first quarter of 2025. Financials tend to set the...
And, he's... sorry about that, Luke, but it he talked about how in January, we weren't there yet, but they were getting ready for it. It was already starting, the dollar was starting to stimulate already for the banks, right? And that's what it was starting to, the growth was starting to happen. Now, are we going to see much of it right now? We're still, March, and early March we're coming into already. And we have to figure out, how and when is this going to happen? A lot of us are anticipating it to be done the first, the first week in office. And really in reality, it's not going to happen that way. It's, it's impossible for something like that to happen that way. And we have to see the big picture. I am not an analyst of economics, but I do know economics 101 and how it works, right? And I'm kind of spreading the what I know and how it actually is going to work. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out, but some people just don't realize and understand how this works, right? And it doesn't happen overnight. No. And that's what we have to really, really figure out, how we're going to move forward and pick up the pace a little bit, right? And it's crazy how the thought process in economics and the dollar bill makes us wonder of how much the dollar bill will be worth. And I'll tell you that here in just a minute. So let's go ahead and take a real quick break. We'll be back in just a minute.
You're listening to America's Podcast.
All right, guys, welcome back. We were just talking about the American dollar, and is it going to be able to go back to what it is, right? $1, 100 pennies. Yeah, maybe. Can we get it there? I believe so. I think we can. And it's just going to take a little bit. It might even take this whole year before we get it back to where it needs to be. And we've all noticed that the tariffs that was happening between President Trump and now President Trump and Mexico and Canada, and everybody was freaking out, about what was going to happen. And Trump has a business mind model. Let's just put it to you that way. His mind works with numbers, and everything's numbers. So when you're dealing with numbers, you use tactics, right? And his tactics were to go super, super high as far as the tariffs, like 25%. He went way out there. He went totally way out there on the tariff. We'll just call it the tariff scare, okay? And it was a scare tactic. That's exactly what it was, right? He wanted to make sure that we get more. Let's just say we were only charging them, let's just say 8%, or whatever, 8% on a tariff, right? And they were charging us, 20. Okay, so that didn't make any sense of what it was. So then he turned around and said, well, I'm going to charge you 25. And it was, everybody just lost it from then on, right? So, and which was, it's okay, right? It's all right to think, oh, he's going to cause a war. But no, it was a tactic, right? So in the end, he ended up getting 12% or so from a couple of these countries when they were only paying 8%, right? So we still got more than what was bargained for, right? In other words, now we're back to being ahead again. This is how the game works, okay? It works with every country like that. And really, in reality, the United States is we are a superpower, and we do have things that people do want. We don't necessarily have to have things that they have because we can have those here in this country as well, right? So this is where the land of the law, sometimes the voice is strong at times, but in a business sense, he was able to get more tariffs out of these other countries and have us pay less tariffs in return. So it was an equal based. In other words, instead of us paying them 25%, now we're paying 12, just like they are. Hey, equal all the way across, right? You pay me 12, we'll pay you 12. That's just the way it works. So, and which was brilliant, really, in reality, if you kind of think about it, how that negotiation was done. It's still not done yet, but that is helping to stimulate the dollar, the U.S. dollar, still at this point, because the more money they're saving, the more the money can stay within the United States, and it's able to grow, right? So I heard this economic professor talk about this one time, and as I watched him online, of course, he said that the U.S. dollar, right? Let's just say the U.S. dollar is falling because it's worthless. It's worthless paper, right? So the more money you print, the more worthless it becomes. And this is how he said. He said, think about it this way. If Leonardo da Vinci would have made 1 million paintings, do you think that'd be worth anything? Or luckily he only made like 1,000, let's just say. So that's why these paintings are worth so much money, right? Same thing goes with the United States dollar. You don't have to be printing all that money because it's going to become worthless paper after a while. It's not going to be worth anything. And that kind of gave me that aha moment. Wow, I didn't think about it that way. But yeah, that's how it works, right? So it's not that the more money you print, you can just make yourself a billionaire. No, it costs money, right, to print money. And I think it's about 12 cents or so, but don't quote me on that. I'm going to read you this here. The United States dollar, it was distinguished and denominated in currencies, right? It referred to the dollar. And back then it was called the buck, right? Which some of us still say today, right? And in the United States and several other countries, it says the Coinage Act in 1792 introduced the U.S. dollar at par with the Spanish silver dollar. This is back then, right? So divided it into 100 cents and then authorized the minting of the coins denominated into dollars and cents. U.S. banknotes are issued in the form of a Federal Reserve note. Popularity called greenbacks due to the green color, right? So they're like, okay, well that sticks, right? So why not use something that sticks? And it all started somewhere, right? And this is where it started. And now we have so much currency that we're in the trillions now. And the only way to fix this is through our economic, let's just say our boosts with our energy. Energy is the first thing, right? Electricity, fuel, coal, gas, natural gas, things like that are going to stimulate our economy. And there was a gentleman talking about this here the other day, and I was able to catch his video, and let's hear what he has to say about the United States dollar and the European dollar and how it will help or not help Europe.
Kit, what do you think is going to drive further dollar strength if we get it, or perhaps euro strength? Will it be European disappointments, European surprises to the upside? Will it be rate differentials, or will it be ultimately just a real question of what the neutral rate is in the United States?
I think the neutral rate is look higher in the United States than in Europe, and that's a challenge that doesn't get written up about enough. Just that if my neutral rate's higher than your neutral rate, my currency ought to be going up forever. I mean, it's not a stable equilibrium if we have these big divergences in neutral policy rates. So that's a major factor, but I think it's largely in the price. What I'm most uncertain about is the politics, in the sense of, have we priced in too much of what people expect from President-elect Trump, or have we not priced it all in at all yet in terms of what that does for the dollar? I've read so many pieces talking about the possible negative growth effects of his tariff proposals, plans, threats, whatever we want to call them. If he wants to get a deal that's good for the US, it has to be a deal that's good for the world and good for global trade. And if he does that, there's more upside to growth elsewhere than there is in the US from those deals, if only everybody can embrace them. And that wouldn't be good for the dollar. So at the margin, I think the politics will be more important than the kind of straight economics. If all we're doing is trading what's happening economically now, I think we're just going to have a very strong dollar for as far as the eye can see. The debate about whether it can get back to parity for Eurodollar or a little bit stronger generally than it is now, it's a tough debate. It's a really expensive currency that will stay expensive as long as the rest of the world is shoveling all of its savings into the United States to see how much money it can make out of the U.S. equity market.
Kit, what do you think?
All right. So, as you heard him say, that through the tariffs, that this is going to be the way to stimulate the economy, and which is actually happening now, right? We see it. And then I told you about about our fuel and how it's how our reserves have gone down, and there's a chart out there. Really, in reality, we were at pretty much leveled off from from 2016 to 2020, and once we hit 2020, it took a nosedive straight to negative 25%, right? And this is our fuel reserves, right? From and it gradually started dipping, and then finally it took in 2023 it made a drastic drop, right? So this is the time where I'm trying to tell you that they used the reserves to keep our fuel prices down, right? Because the economy was not doing well at all, and they figured, well, through fuel, we'll go ahead and do it this way. But no, not thinking about the tariffs, not thinking about the natural drilling. Everything was stopped. Drilling in the United States, really, in reality, almost to a halt. They were still doing some towards the last year of the previous administration. He went ahead and opened some of those up, but it was a trickle. Really, in reality, all it was a trickle of drilling that they were able to get more leases to drill in different ranches or buybacks. So they bought their leases back in order to continue drilling. But it was just a trickle of fuel. It wasn't very many oil companies that went to a straight boom. No, now it is. So now all these oil companies know that they are heading for a large boom of oil, which is going to start coming through with barrels, hundreds and thousands and millions of barrels of oil are going to start flowing through, which makes it better, right? It's going to make it cheaper for your propane as well, right? So if you paid high prices this year of your propane, it's gonna be down this next winter. So we're coming out of winter, right? So thank God on that one. So people are going to start saving a little bit on propane, which is cool. I really enjoy that because, hey, I got an RV. It was starting to cost a little money just to fill up those propane tanks. Yes, it was. It should have been, a lot cheaper than it was. But a lot of people will agree and will disagree with what I'm saying here. But this is the only way that the almighty dollar is gonna get back to where it was, right? Is to just boost our fuel, our energy. Our energy is number one, man. Wouldn't you like a cheaper electric bill? Or wouldn't you like a cheaper gas bill if you pay for water and gas in your local city government? Wouldn't you like that? I would. So the more that you save in your pocket, the more you're going to spend on these businesses out there, right? And that's going to help stimulate the economy because they're going to need more, right? So, which means the truck driver is going to be running double shifts, getting the eggs or the fuel or just the stuff that you clothes on shelves and everything that you want, televisions, let's just say, games or whatever it is. Anything that you need, they'll have it. And they're going to get it there double time now, right? So, which means more people will have more money in their pocket. Now they're talking about sending you a stimulus of $5,000. Wouldn't that work just fine? Some people will put it in the bank. Yeah, it's okay. The banks will still use that money no matter what. And you'll still be getting a percentage, small percentage on that if you just leave it in the bank. That's cool too. But if you spend it, you'll be stimulating the economy. Most people will probably spend it because as far as many families and a lot of families that I know have been penny pinching for a long time. Hey, and if they feel like taking the kids out or going out to a let's just say a park or amusement park or wherever, hey, they're able to go do it, right? And that will help as much, right? Bring more jobs back in and everything will start growing to where the more money you save in your pocket, the more money you have in the bank, the happier you become. And we're not looking like the Scrooge, right? So because it's just a lot of people were getting very angry back to, a year ago or whatever. It was just getting a little edgy. But if you're financially secure and it's okay to splurge a little bit and you're in that situation, great. I'm very happy for you. But when it comes to what the people that are in our lower bracket, this will help them as well, right? So it's going to be it's going to take some time to get everything fixed, but it will get fixed, and it's just going to take a little while. So if you have the question, why don't you have any right now? How come we don't have any? And you can't really ask those questions just yet. It's too early. It's way too early. He's just a president. He's not Jesus Christ or whoever it is. So you can't perform a miracle right now. It's going to take a little while, right? So and it's going to take with all the help that he's getting from the local and state governments and even our national government. It's going to take a little bit, but I believe that we'll be back to where we need to be, and everybody can go back to maybe possibly back to work. Right? I'm sure there's a few people out of work for a little while there, and this will be a good thing, right? The more money you have in your pocket, the more financial, you're not held down by financial burdens, the happier you become as people. Yeah, I believe so. Money makes me happy. I don't know about you. So, and that's pretty much how it works. So, as far as the dollar, yeah, it's going to take a little while. I believe it's like worth 82 cents right now, and it's how do you get that fixed, right? The only way to fix it is, like I said, tax cuts, tax rebates, stimulating the economy, deregulation, using our own infrastructure for economic growth. It has to be. You can even go ask your AI. They're going to tell you, ChatGPT, whichever one you're using, going to tell you the same thing. So what does that tell you? Yeah. If ChatGPT's right, then it's right. Hey, well, it's just telling you the way to do it. And whether you believe in ChatGPT or not, it's getting there. It's kind of scary too, if you think about it. So it is what it is. And at this point, we have to get everything back to normal, and hopefully we can stimulate this economy, get people back to work, get jobs going I don't care if you're left, right, in the middle. We have to get people back to work, and that would be the best way to do it. And there's just no other way to fix it, right? So let's take a quick break. We'll be back here in just a minute.
You're listening to America's Podcast.
All right, guys, welcome back. Hope you guys are enjoying America's Podcast. It's just a little. The dollar can make you happy. or make you sad. One of the two, right? And we're just trying to find ways to fix it on how we could do that, right? There was a gentleman out there that he talked about the dollar, and I found it pretty interesting, and I'm going to read it to you here. So it says the difference between the cost to print a mint physical money and what it's worth is called, signage. Let's see. So if the government or counterfeiter prints $50 bills at a cost of $2 each, they'll make $48 per bill. It says, note that this works in reverse as well. The U.S. Mint cost to produce pennies is about 1.5 cents. They're literally losing money on each one, right? So it's kind of making a point there. So in practice, none of this really matters except for counterfeiters, right? Most government currency production is just for replacement. There's little physical currency added to the pot. In other words, banks send $10,000 of worn out $50 bills back to the U.S. Treasury. The Treasury calls up the Bureau of Engraving and says, print another 10,000 of 50s. Then ships those out to the banks. In this practice, all these things happen in parallel. And there's a stockpile of new but uncirculated bills in the warehouse used to make that happen, right? This basically means that almost currency printing is a straight cost to the government. There is no centerage, right, to be made. And in this process, is just funded out of government general revenue. The physical currency is something you need to make the economy work, and is more likely a road in that regard. In some cases, that the products that are sold to produce some revenue. The U.S. Mint example makes a number of collectible coins. Some governments strike precious metal investment coins, gold. From South Africa, for example. So he's just pretty much telling you how much it costs and how they have to recirculate that money, the old money and then the new money, right? So I'm sure they do destroy the old money. They don't keep it, but it still costs money to make a dollar, right? And whether it goes into circulation, like when your bank has the new $100 bills, if you're able to get one, those are cool, right? Don't you like the smell of a brand new $100 bill or even a dollar bill? Nice and crispy, right? Those are cool, right? It's almost like, wow, I got me some money. But, it costs money to print a dollar, right? And we always ask, well, what is the American dollar worth, or what is it worth to you? And for some, it's worth a lot. For many other countries, it's worth nothing. And we have to kind of look outside the box here to make our dollar worth something, right? So this is exactly what's happening today. That they're trying to fix it to where our dollar is worth more than it is to print. And once that happens, then we're golden, man. We're golden. So when you ask the question, why isn't my gas gone down yet? Or how come the eggs haven't gone down yet? Or we just started. This just started. Give it a little time. 6 months will go by pretty darn quick for you guys out there, right? And it's just one of those things that we have to really, really just kind of wait and ride out the storm, right? Of course, and then once these wars come to an end, everything else is going to help because they're going to be saving money on these countries on not shooting off weapons, right? Those cost money. Each missile and rocket and tank and helicopter and fuel and all that's being saved. It's not being used, right? So that's money being saved for each country that's not in war. And that country is not going broke, right? So this is the way to stimulate not just the United States of America, but to stimulate the world. And that would be the best way to do it, right? The way it's happening now. So be patient. Whether you like this administration or you don't like what they're doing, just be patient. If you're interested in your bank account, your wallet, or anything like that, and it will grow, and then you'll see the difference, right? Nobody's telling you to like whoever it is in the administration or not to like them or do like them. In this podcast, we're not doing that. We're unbiased, but I just want people to understand that numbers don't lie. And the when you start seeing this with your own eyes and then start doing your own investigating on the economy and how much fuel costs, and you start looking deep into OPEC and how much it costs to print a dollar, go look it up. Go look at everything I told you today is 100% true. And the only way to fix this is with our infrastructure. We have to fix it that way first. So always look at America first, America's people first, and care about everything that happens here first. Because America is freedom, right? We are freedom. We want freedom, and we want freedom in our bank accounts, right? In our wallets too. We want financial freedom as well. So as you start saving more money or getting more on your paycheck, you start having more financial freedom, which makes you a happier person, right? I believe so. And that's the best way to do it, right? And I'm glad you're listening here on America's Podcast. I just gave you a little bit of my personal thoughts and some information that was out there to what people think about the American dollar and how it's going to affect us as American citizens, affect your pocket, affect other countries as well. But you heard it for yourself here on America's Podcast. And, I just hope that you guys really enjoyed everything that's America's Podcast is about. Freedom, civil liberties, the American people, the American dollar. That's for sure. We care about you guys out there, right? Thank you guys for listening today on America's Podcast. I'm your host, Donald Ledesma. Don't forget to go to all my links. Click on those right there. And go check out some good stuff. Follow us on social media. We're going to have some more audio podcasts coming up here pretty soon. We do have some video ones as well. You can catch us on YouTube, Rumble, and that's about it. And we do have a Facebook page. Go to our Facebook page. Go check it out. Appreciate you guys. Have yourselves a good day. Keep thinking positive. And don't forget, America first.
You're listening to America's